Good morning. I'm Finn Deerhart, and I am sitting out in front of this beautiful edifice of Grace Cathedral in San Francisco. And I'm reflecting here actually because this symbol has been such an organizing force and principle in the Western mind on the individual level and certainly on the collective for thousands of years, and it continues to be so across the world. I think most of you have heard me talk about the fact that I was a minister. I was raised in a church in the South, that my father was a minister, and it took me so many years to be able to come away from that and to be able to come out of the closet and to stop cutting myself into pieces. I bring this up because what's going on in our culture right now, this like us versus them dialogue, this is not my America, all of this dialogue I think really is suspect because what it represents to me is an unclaimed shadow. And I don't think that this isn't going away. What we're going through is not going to go away. We go through it in our own selves all the time. We go through it collectively, and all we have to do is look at history, look at mythology to understand that what's happening right now is something that can't be stopped. Like, this is a reckoning force that we have to deal with, and there's no way for us to exert from the outside to be able to stop what's happening in the country. We have to be able to start looking within ourselves, all of us. And I don't care if you're religious or not. This isn't even about religion. What it's about is being able to see the self. I want to tell you a counter story, the story of Inanna. She's a Sumerian goddess, and I bring this up because she is, as far as I can tell, and correct me if I'm wrong, the original crucifixion story. And she was the queen of heaven, and she's summoned to go into the underworld. And as she goes there, she meets 7 different gates, and she has to take off her breastplate, her necklace, her robes, everything that she's put on herself to represent who she is to the world. She has to strip all of that bare. It's demanded of her so that she be naked. And inside hell, or the underworld, Kur, she is actually destroyed, hung on a hook, and has to be rescued by the King of Heaven. All that to say, she finds her shadow twin. She confronts the aspects of herself that are disavowed, and she's exalted back to heaven because she is able to reconcile with the parts of herself that have been taken away or cut off or projected onto her sister. So I tell you that story because I find it to be fascinating, and she's also incidentally the queen of sexuality to the Sumerians in the ancient times. Sexuality, love, warfare, which to me is so fascinating and interesting because we pit those things against each other in our modern minds. Sex and death are something separate. In fact, they're part of the same cycle. And as far as I can tell, construction and destruction are the same thing. It's semantics that separates them, and it's also perspective that separates them. It's like, what do we want to see when we look at something? So I want to encourage you to leave you with this question. And this is a prompt that I use a lot when I'm thinking about how am I being affected and influenced by my own biases. And the question is not what is it that I see, but how is it that I see? What is objective? I can look at something and I think that that's an objective something that I'm seeing. How am I seeing is a process. It suggests something that's ongoing, it's unfolding. And so I ask you to look at yourself, look at the ways in which we are maybe allowing the parts of ourselves that we don't want to look at to live and reside within leaders and people that are really easy to look at and think, wow, that's really fucking crazy. But I don't think that we're going to be able to resolve the conflicts that we're facing unless we look at those conflicts within ourselves. I don't think it's going away. I think it represents something that's been here for thousands and thousands of years within the human mind and continues to surface across the globe and across stories and across religions. And the only way that we can make it out together is if we actually start conceptualizing ourselves as a globe and each other in a global kind of way. We have to find something to connect beneath the ideologies that we utilize to divide ourselves and to organize into groups. So I hope that this is helpful for you. If you want somewhere to start, I would say, since I am a sex and intimacy coach, look at the contents of your fantasies. I mean, what ways in which do the qualities that we might consider to be toxic in other men show up in the very men that we actually want to have sex with? how are those qualities related? How do we like hold ourselves to the same kind of standards that we might actually, again, project onto other people and say, oh wow, that's really fucking toxic, but it's something that when we look in the mirror, we do every single time we see ourselves, or when we're having sex, when we're like really cutting ourselves into pieces over the experience and judging ourselves and trying to perform. And I will say the men that our culture exalts in our fantasy life are the same men that we want to, you know, label and judge on the outside. So yeah, explore that. I'd love to hear feedback. If you want to send me emails, finn@finndeerhart.com. As always, I love your feedback. I love the questions, responses, and would love to do any kind of work with anyone that wants to do some session work as well. Sending you all lots of love. Oh no, I didn't get that guy's model release.